Happy Friday, everyone. It's almost the weekend, which means Michael Loftus heads to his local Goodwill and digs through a fresh container of recently deloused hobo clothes. and Kat tried to actually leave early today to go to happy hour.
You know how to go.
Go!
Yeah. Push that on the
Couldn't wait a few hours. And because I care about my health, I'll be working out. You know, a disgusting person would say he gives great head, but I'm not that kind of person.
That was a fun little roller coaster of reaction.
Yes, it was shock, disgust, and then approval.
Right? Which is where you want to land.
Exactly. Let's do that joke again. Do not edit that out. So Joe's approval ratings dropped to 38% according to the latest poll. That honeymoon ended faster than Ilhan Omar's and her brothers. It's no surprise the presidency is unraveling faster than a cardigan caught in a power drill. Just look at the key variables. Foreign policy's been a disaster, unless you're the Taliban and are doing donuts on a soccer field in a U.S. Army Jeep. As vice president, Joe went to funerals. As president, he causes them. Yes. It's amazing. This joker has been in politics forever. And the moment that he's put in charge, he wets the Oval Office rug like a nervous puppy. I would not trust him with the keys to a rascal scooter. I think that's one of our sponsors. Inflation now hits American households for an extra $175 a month, which is exactly what Hunter pays the masseuse for a happy ending at the local Super 8. Meanwhile, gas prices are higher than Cat.
Just rhythmically.
Yes, it didn't work rhythmically, but he didn't have to. But that's another tax targeting the working stiff. You know, the people who have to drive to pay their bills instead of selling arts and crafts for $500,000. But of course, the guy who says the buck stops with me says it's not his fault that the buck is worth a lot less than it was a year ago. You've heard about the homicide numbers. Even cartel members from Tijuana won't visit Baltimore. In Chicago, more people are getting their shots from a Glock than a syringe. You got a dead domestic agenda. The only thing Joe seems capable of passing is gas from the Gerber's pureed vegetables he had for lunch. Also, there's more COVID deaths under Joe in just 10 months with 3 vaccines than of all of last year. Good luck blaming it on Trump, but of course they will. Yes, remember that constant body count that showed up every day like Stelter at Krispy Kreme? Gleefully attributing every casualty to Trump, even if the COVID victim was 600 pounds, 9 years old, and had a crowbar through his head. They hoped the list would cost Trump the election, and it did. Biden promised to shut the virus down. Instead, the only thing he is shutting down is the early bird buffet. Now, when Biden wins, the body count disappears, much like CNN's fact-checking department, which they put into cold storage along with their ratings and Chris Cuomo's career. Yeah. So what do you say about all of this, Joe?
Look, this is simple. Right? I was saying this the other day on the telephone, the television, the radio, the 8-track player, all right? It's so simple. If it's good, I did it. Buck stops here. It's me, all right? If it's bad, it's the other guy. You know who I'm talking about, all right? So, just look. If you got COVID, okay, that's him. If you got no COVID, that's me. All right? I did that. Okay? The border, that's him. Crime, that's him. High taxes, that's him. Okay. Now, what's me? Let me think of some good things here. Raindrops on roses and whiskers on kittens. That's it. Both of those are me.
Yes. So Quinnipiac's Tim Malloy summarizes the brutal polling findings. Battered on trust, doubted on leadership, and challenged on overall competency, President Biden continues a downward slide to a number not seen since the tough scrutiny of the Trump administration. So did you notice something there? He says they haven't seen findings like this since the tough scrutiny of the Trump administration. So what's the difference here? There is no tough scrutiny of the Biden administration at all. The press looks away like they've been shown erotic photos of Joy Behar. This suggests that if the scrutiny were equal, brains would explode. Either Trump would have been the greatest president ever if they treated him fairly, or Joe Biden would be the worst president ever if they treated him fairly. It's mind-boggling. With Biden, it's parents at school board meetings who are to blame, right? Or the unvaccinated, or Fox News. Joe will be blaming the ghost of Ronald Reagan, whom he talks to every night at the White House. Meanwhile, there are no comparisons between Joe and Trump on any variable. Economy, foreign policy, COVID, crime, the border. And why? Because if you did that, you would see that Trump would destroy Biden, which returns us to two key points. First, the media didn't care that President Trump improved the country. Why would they? Most of them hate this place anyway. But he had to go. His late-night tweets gave all of them early morning anxiety. And even with all his cash, he still wasn't one of them. He was one of us. Also, he was a Republican. So he starts off as Hitler. We're on like 3 Hitlers now. One more Hitler and we have a box set. Clapping for Hitler. So they gladly handed the country's keys to some doddering old mess who goes to bed at 4 p.m. but doesn't send mean tweets. But this happens almost every time a Democrat is in the White House. It's like we keep punching ourselves in the face to see if it really hurts as much as we thought it did 4 or 8 years ago. It does. And what happened to that unity pledge? Joe's about as unifying as farting in an elevator. Just ask Kat. So, to protect the media's precious mental health, we screwed our country over. So what happens when you realize that reassessing Trump only makes Biden look even worse? If Biden is worse than what the media called an existential threat, then what do you call Biden? A super-duper existential threat? And if the media can't compare Biden to Trump's achievements, then what do? You talk about January 6th and white supremacists. Suddenly, concerned parents become domestic terrorists. And surprise, amazing, the Facebook whistleblower who just miraculously showed up on 60 Minutes will now be testifying at the next January 6th hearing. So once again, the media and the Democrats are in cahoots, which is necessary. With these polling numbers, if Biden got any more underwater, he'd be Aquaman. Let's welcome tonight's guest. They said it couldn't be done, but we booked Miss Florida Citrus 2002, former State Department spokeswoman Morgan Ortagus. Her name's Lithuanian for helping Greg reach stuff from the top shelf. Fox News Headlines 24/7 host Carly Shimkus. I would hate to see what this guy wears on laundry day. The LoftusParty.com founder, Michael Loftus. And when she is not being a diva, she's not being a diva when she yells, "Do you know who I am?" She honestly can't remember. Fox News contributor, Kat Timpf. So, Morgan, I almost wore the same thing.
Ew.
Yes. But I talked to Fox. We can't wear the same thing on this show. So here's the amazing thing. This guy has been in politics for half a century, right? And he sucks. So that tells me that no matter how long you're in politics, it doesn't improve with experience. It actually protects incompetence. Whereas you have somebody like Trump who had no experience actually do a better job. So what does that say about politics in general?
It sucks, probably. But he has been around forever. And, you know, it's funny because he was sort of the butt of the jokes of the Democratic Party for a long time, right?
Yeah.
Like, you remember in the 2008 debates when he was on stage and they were like, "Can you stop talking, Joe?"
Yeah.
And he was sort of the joke who just stayed around long enough and then actually got elected. But, you know, his poll numbers are terrible today. Also, the jobs numbers, I think that women lost 28,000 jobs. We didn't gain any jobs. We actually lost 28,000. And it's not just because I think, you know, Biden, you know, bless his heart, has seen better years. I think the policies are really bad. Like, it was really funny to read the business headlines today. They were like, women are having to stay at home because the daycare and schools are closed. No, right? Who else is going to? I mean, you know, the husbands help, but like, of course it's disproportionately affecting women, these bad policies.
Yeah. You know, Michael, her point about Joe, it's kind of like your strategy at a bar. You know, stay around long enough and you might get lucky.
Yeah. Right around 2 a.m., everybody's hammered. You're like, oh, Joe's feeling good, America. Who wants a good screwing?
Last call Joe. He was last call Joe.
Yes, and it's these poll numbers, like, who's shocked by these? A guy who's been absolutely horrible for 48 years.
Yeah.
Oh, now he's horrible at this job, too. Wow, let's put him behind the wheel of a Ferrari. He wrecked it. Who knew? Yeah, his numbers are dropping fast. They are dropping faster.
How fast?
They're dropping faster than Nancy Pelosi's granny panties at a Chardonnay tasting evening.
How fast?
Faster than Hunter Biden dropping to his knees at a Parmesan carpet cleaning contest.
One more? How fast?
Faster than Gavin Newsom's mask at the French laundry buffet.
All right.
That is a skill.
Oh, it's fun.
Yeah.
But our national, it's funny, like, these numbers are not a shock to like half the country.
Yeah.
Half the country is we just started, we're 8 months into the longest game of we told you so ever in the history
That's
of
true.
mankind.
Carly, you look very sparkly today.
Thank you.
What do you make of this? My prediction is the worse that Joe gets, the more intensely the media will focus on domestic terror.
Absolutely. And, you know, it is interesting because, as you know, there are TVs all over the floors here at Fox News that show what's on our air, FBN, CNN, MSNBC, and as we're covering the news of the day, it is really fascinating to see how all the other networks are still really stuck on January 6th, and it's really because that's all they have. And President Biden, if you think about why he was elected into office, it's really to be a placeholder president. Nobody voted for him because he inspired the masses. The people who did just didn't want Trump, and I think that there's a lot of buyer's remorse there because, like you said, the poll numbers on the economy, Afghanistan, foreign policy, crime, those are obvious because we're obviously doing bad in those areas. But the poll numbers on Biden's personality are really interesting. Is he honest? That dropped 20 points over the last 8 months. Does he care about the average American? That dropped 11. And his personality was his bread and butter.
Yeah.
The fact that he was going to be a moderate also, both things, that's not the reality right now.
I don't think he eats bread and butter. I think it's usually,
Metaphor.
yeah, it's got to be something smooth,
Softer.
easily digestible, softer. So I'm speaking from experience, Kat. Yeah. What do you make of this, these polling numbers for Joe? Will the administration change course? That's a special report kind of question.
I've never been on that show, believe it or not. Let's see how I do. No, I don't think they'll change course because, first of all, I don't think he's the one thinking about it at all. I think that whatever people tell him to do, he says, okay.
Right.
He reads off the prompter, and that's all he does. But they still keep going back to the Trump thing because that's where they set the bar. They said, if you don't vote for this guy and Trump is the president, all of civilization will collapse and everyone will die. And as dumb as that is, people believed it.
Yes.
People were really concerned that that would happen. So I think that there's still going to be people hanging on saying, well, at least civilization's not collapsed. But at this point, we're getting kind of close.
Yeah. No, it was apocalypse every day under Trump. And what is it now? It's like it's doom, but everybody's just pretending like it's
not
okay.
our fault, though.
It's not our fault.
Everything that goes wrong, instead of focusing on fixing it, they focus on the PR strategy of why it's not their fault.
Exactly.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.